I love Cowboys. I love the Western aesthetic. If there's a yippee, you can be certain I'll be kayayin'. I don't know where it came from. Probably my grandpa. He might not have ridden horses or gotten along with any little doggies to my knowledge, but he was absolutely a cowboy. I remember peering through his old cowboy novels, seeing his hats and belt buckles. He let me hold a cap gun once, which was almost irresponsibly responsible. It was hammered into me at a very young age that cowboys are the best. So when I see a game like this that sets out to tell a Western story through the frame of an older style of shooter, I'm gonna enjoy it. The Call of Juarez series is one that I'm certain we've all heard of, but only as the name at the bottom of search results for Call of when you sort them alphabetically. You can't do that! That's cheating! It's supposed to be based on the ancient legend of Aztec gold buried in the border town of Juarez, but no, it's not! A series of shooter games in the Old West, except one, that overall are pretty solid. The first game has this neat idea of switching control between an outlaw and the bounty hunter hunting him, while the second game is about a band of brothers hunting down the mythical treasure. They're pretty solid games, though both having an equal amount of jank that keeps them from the upper echelons of 2000s shooters. Having dual-wielding pistols be mapped to the left and right mouse buttons, it's too cute. It's adorable. It's rotting my teeth just trying to unlearn that muscle memory. Oh, and the whip sucks. But as the series continued, it improved. Bound in Blood sold over 1 million copies, and it seemed like Techland could carve out a nice little niche for themselves as the developers of robust and interesting cowboy shooters. Or at least they would have if not for the cartel. Yeah, the third Call of Juarez game decided that the niche they had made for themselves was too niche, and threw its hat into the ring of gray and brown modern shooters. But with a twist. Riding in black SUVs and firing machine guns.
All I need is a spittoon and we're back in the old wets.
Call of Juarez, the cartel, is the bottom of the barrel, not just of Techland's entire catalog, but the entire shooter genre. A game so bad that it permanently damaged the series. Leaving that niche that they had made for themselves meant they had to come in with something great to make up for it. All they could think to do was make a video game character say bad words. You can do that? You want to know how bad it was? Ubisoft published this and the next game in the series. And in 2018, Techland became sole series publishers again. This shift led to the two games being delisted for a while. And while Gunslinger got put back and ported to the Switch, a cartel was told, no, you are not allowed back in, sir. But what about that final game? Well, in 2013, Techland had acknowledged the series belonged in the Wild West, and were developing the new one as a sort of course correction from the cartel. And that would become Call of Juarez Gunslinger. When reviews rolled in, people across the board were blown away that this game came out so soon after Cartel. Not only had it fixed what was wrong, but improved the game to the point that many people consider it the best of the four. Nowadays, Call of Juarez is less a series and more a funny hat that Gunslinger wears and refuses to take off. Is it worthy of being the lasting legacy of the Call of Juarez series? It's more a question of, do the other two deserve to be in the same series as Gunslinger? Okay, I know this isn't how it usually goes, but give me a minute and I'll give you a cool new game to look out for. Alright, so it's called Boom Busters. It's a new game being developed by Tall Glass Games and it's fun as hell. Fans of Sort and Splode from New Super Mario Bros. Can finally breathe easy, as there's a game worthy of that stallion's legacy. Sort bombs, collect coins, jump on enemies. Don't jump on other enemies. It depends, really. The game has a really low barrier for entry, but a really high skill ceiling that will give you the chance to combo together bomb pickups and give you the highest score possible. The style is reminiscent of early 2000s cartoons and games like Anton Blast and Pizza Tower, and the style of humor is very reminiscent of stuff like Smiling Friends. This is not hard to recognize if you use your eyes frequently. A demo for the game is out right now on Steam, with a brand new one coming out on July 17th, which I got to play first, because I'm a pretty princess. If the game looks at all interesting to you, I implore you to check out the page, download the demo, and wishlist the game. It plays even better than it looks. Now let's go shoot people in the face. Gunslinger follows the story of Silas Greaves, an old worn-down bounty hunter looking to wet his whistle at a saloon. Joining him at the bar is Dwight, a young boy who loves Old West stories, old-timer Steve, Jack, a prick, Molly the bartender, and Ben the barkeep. Of course, everybody wants to know what the Silas Greaves is doing there, and wants to hear the stories he has over his long career. Rather than structure the game's story around Silas's adventure as it unfolds, the game is based around him telling the story to the other people in the bar, which narratively works wonders. There are games with narration, sure, but very few of them have ever used narration that really impacts the gameplay like Gunslinger does. While playing the game, Silas will occasionally amend a detail or include something he forgot that will change the entire layout of the level, the enemies you fight, and what you're doing. Having the story be told by a cowboy is good. Having the story be told by an old, forgetful cowboy is a masterstroke. Side characters will also chime in from time to time to call bull on the story beats that make no sense, or even offer a more accurate account of what happened. Oh, you want to call the validity of my story into question? Just 'cause I've been shot at don't mean my brain is full of holes. Now get real, boy! Alright, so this is the part of the story where I get shot in the face and die. As a framing device, I fully believe that Gunslinger has one of the most interesting and fun uses of storytelling in a video game. Our first story sees Silas Greaves riding with Billy the Kid, the infamous real-world cowboy. Silas's stories take him across the entire history of the Old West. Pretty much every major figure in Western history, save for the Earps and Doc Holliday, are accounted for, and even they get mentioned in passing. As somebody who loves Wild West history, this inclusion, and the encyclopedic information that comes with them, is much appreciated. As you make your way to the stables that Billy the Kid is held up at, desperate to ignore the 8 in the corner cause I can't make it go away yet, we come across 2 lawmen looking to capture Billy. And the history books will say I took them out in 2 clean shots. 2 squeaky clean shots, and nobody can recount the story differently. Right? The deputies have surrounded the ranch, and between the dozens of armed men held up in the farmhouse and myself, we have to get rid of all of them. This is our first proper firefight, and it gets you acquainted with the controls. Things are basic all around, shooting and stuff. You start out with a revolver that can store 6 shots and takes a day and a half to reload, but through the level you can pick up stuff like a shotgun, rifle, and with the right upgrades, a second gun for dual-wielding action. Why precisely aim when can shoot? 12 shots, one of them's gotta hit something! That upgrade I mentioned is gotten via experience, which is where the game really starts to shine. Killing people is ho-hum, seen it before, whatever. Giving me points for killing people, and you just invented the Wild West's next great tragedy. By killing people, you get experience points. But doing it in style is just as important. A standard kill is a meager 50 points. Pshaw. But a headshot is 100 points, and a headshot as you're dying is another 50 points. Killing somebody that's far away, that's another 50 points. Killing them as you run, that's another 50 points. And as you start killing multiple people, the kills begin comboing and the score begins multiplying. As you learn all the different ways to keep a combo going and earn more points, soon you'll be leveling up multiple times in a single level. And in the results screen, it will even tell you what your favorite score bonus was. But what are we even doing with all these points? Maybe just enjoying the moment. With each level up you get a point that can be placed into individual skill trees to increase your skills. One, of course, is the ability to dual wield, but you also get increased resistances, deeper ammo pockets for weapons, and upgrades for the game's two other main mechanics. When you kill enough people, this gun in the upper left-hand corner will fill up, and allow you to enter concentration, which allows you to aim your shots better by slowing down time and turning the enemies red. Running into a group of enemies, activating concentration, then shooting them all dead is a feeling that hasn't gotten old over 140 hours of gameplay. The other one is for when this recklessness eventually comes back to bite you, and Silas is close to sucking down lead through a double-barreled straw. Sense of death kicks in if this skull icon in the upper right-hand corner is filled in. Then the next time you'd be dealt a game-ending shot, you get one last chance to duck out of the way and return fire. These two perks work beautifully together, with the concentration acting as a way to either rack up a huge score, or a way to tell where pesky enemies are that blend into the background. The saving throw, like I said, gives you a little more room for reckless play, while also making sure the flow doesn't get broken up too much by a level restart. And that's just in their base forms. When upgraded, you get a counterfire after a sense of death save, more concentration per kill, higher combos for concentration kills. The back and forth nature of these three skill trees allows you to really fit the experience to your playstyle. Maybe you like running in shotguns akimbo to blow the enemies to kingdom come, with a rifle on your back to keep your distance when you inevitably mess up. Maybe you prefer fast-firing six-shooters with a shotgun for cleaning up the mess. As long as it's some combination of shotgun, revolver, and rifle, you can do it. For me, I somehow resisted the siren song of the 12-gauge, and stuck with a rifle and a single revolver for most of the game, since the previous course of action led to several short stories rather than one long one. The old man ran in with his head. He did not leave with it. Back at the ranch, and the fight to get inside was a hard one, with deputies all over the place that were crack shots when it came to aiming. It wasn't until I got inside I could take a breath and regroup with Billy the Kid. Even if you know nothing about Cowboys or the Old West, these comic-style cut-ins when a new character gets introduced are more than enough to give you the basics of what you need to know. Billy puts us to work with a rifle in the window as we proceed to blow the top off of every Tom, Dick, and Harry that crosses our line of sight. This section gets you acquainted with a hard and fast rule of the Old West. You can only be so good of a shot when your guns are made out of driftwood and tin cans. One thing you could levy against this game is that the aiming is incredibly precise. Zero wiggle room or forgiveness when it comes to aiming. Either the crosshairs are exactly over the head, or you miss. Oh, and just try to hit anything without iron sights. You're likely to kill an enemy with hip fire, but only after a few months from the infection they get in the bullet wound in their foot. We arrive at the stables, and here's where the story starts to come into conflict. The dime novels say that when he arrived to the stables, Silas Greaves pointlessly killed a chicken. Now, that just ain't right. Really, one is a gross understatement. On our way to gather up the horses to make an escape, we come face to face with Pat Garrett, the ham-fisted deputy who made it his life's mission to hunt down and kill Billy the Kid. This is the other major mode of gameplay, one-on-one gunfights with major historical figures. How better to learn about somebody than by giving them an express lobotomy? The more focus you accrue during the standoff section, the slower your opponent is to react. And later on, as in the next duel later on, you also have to factor in your own speed to be able to beat your opponent to the draw. Doing that by keeping your hand positioned over your gun. You have to wait until the opponent draws their gun to kill them honorably, but if you want history to look back on you as a coward and earn significantly less experience, you can draw first and kill them dishonorably. These sections are so much fun. The building tension of a gun duel, all paid off in that one moment where you hear the gun unclasp and the opponent aim at you as you pull for your own gun and blast them away, is the best. Of course, against somebody who can't keep a star pinned to their lapels, no dirty tactics are necessary. So, Dwight is insistent that we gunned down Pat Garrett then and there, only for Silas to correct the story to be a little less glamorous.
Last thing I heard was Garrett's voice. That's not Billy.
From here, we have all we need to talk about the rest of the game, since mechanically, we've seen just about everything. The two biggest problems I could see people having with this game is how simple it is and how short it is. 8 levels overall, with not much more depth than shooting down the bad guys, sounds like it would be kind of a snooze fest. But what makes this game so engaging doesn't really come from an ocean of gameplay complexities. Simplicity is rather its greatest strength. This game wants to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to emulate an old-school shooting gallery by having you blast away bad guys in increasingly cool ways for sweet, delicious points. If you want to try and look at it through the lens of a tactical shooter or a more over-the-top one, you went in with the wrong expectations. If you want a good summary of this game, it's really like an on-rails shooter that lets you walk from screen to screen. But that's not a bad thing. The game takes that style and does it as tightly and as fun as it can, on top of the amazing framing device. After Pat Garrett throws us in the hole for 4 months, just as we're about to be hung, we get busted out by Billy the Kid and have to find our way out of town. To do that, we're gonna need a weapon, and Deputy Bob Ollinger's mean-ass shotgun seems to be just the ticket. I've yet to meet one of God's beautiful creatures that can walk off a spray of hot lead from a handheld cannon. At the stables, we were running back through our own territory. But in a town like this, we're a lot less lucky. Enemy vantage points have improved significantly since the last mission, and we've got to look all over, not just for the enemies higher up, but the ones in front of us behind cover and shields. But it's the Wild West. You gotta factor in how they haven't invented peripheral vision yet. Just as we're about to hit bricks, and shit quite a few as well, Bob Ollinger comes back and demands we return his shotgun. Oh, you're just saying that because you own it. With Bob taken out, Silas is free to go and start a much more fruitful life as a bounty hunter. From here, the game settles into a much more predictable pattern. The following chapters are all recountings of stories of the big bounties that Silas managed to bag in his time as a bounty hunter, and all follow a fairly standard format. Fighting through dozens of armed goons on our way to the head boss, we usually take out in a duel. It's pretty great for me, then, that this next stage has 3 bosses and only 1 duel among them. Notorious truth teller right here. Our first targets are the Cowboys, an infamous gang of outlaws led by Curly Bill, Johnny Ringo, and our current target, Old Man Clanton. We managed to track him down to Guadalupe Canyon a few months after our search begins. And just as we begin our investigation, we find a caravan being attacked by the exact gang we're looking for. What starts as 3 guys turns into a hail of bullets coming from every which way, from Apache warriors looking to tear me down.
Were you attacked by Apaches? What happened to the Cowboys? Did I say they were Apaches? I said Clanton's Cowboys attacked me Apache style.
I have played this game so many times, and this joke never stops being funny. Despite seeming to do pretty good against unbeatable odds, Silas has enough holes in his head between his mouth, ears, and nose, and is in critical danger of adding a few more. So we run into a cave to try to escape and regroup. The last of our bullets do little, as the Cowboys have a seemingly endless amount, and also I tripped, which proved fatal. But just as it seemed things were going from good to bad to ugly, we find just enough ammo to push them back, and more than enough dynamite to keep them there. When the enemies aren't standing on your foot, which is the shotgun's effective range, dynamite is a lifesaver. And you can get a perk that allows you to split dynamite in midair using your psychic powers, and best of all, those among us with quick reflexes can actually shoot the enemy's dynamite in midair and blow it up in their faces. There are a lot of satisfying moments of gunplay in this game, but it's hard to top that one. As we manage to thin the ranks of our enemies, we find Old Man Clanton. Thing is that we find him at the top of a hill with a Gatling gun. Oh please, I'm not afraid of you, old-timer! I hope one day he stops shooting me. Clanton will only stop for brief moments in order to reload, and these are your chances to run between cover up the hill. Running from rock to rock, bullets whizzing past you, some whizzing into you, narrow misses all along the way up make this section a lot of fun, but Once you make it to Old Man Clanton, we see that the source of the Cowboys' powers was actually a bulletproof wagon. Hiding behind this thing and poking your head out whenever Clanton reloads is a fast way to beat him, but it sure ain't fun. Clanton may have been the brains behind the operation, but he wasn't even the cowboy we were looking for, so we head out to a sawmill to get Johnny Ringo. It turns out alongside Roscoe Bob Bryant and another outlaw, Johnny did something unspeakably horrible to Silas. He was supposed to be at the sawmill, but instead, it's Curly Bill, the new leader of the Cowboys. I'll kill him too, don't want to be rude. The sawmill is a lot more straightforward than the last mission, as it's fighting wave after wave of bad guys, but the environment itself does lead to a couple different set pieces. Shooting out bundles of logs to drop them on the heads of enemies, ducking in and out of shacks for cover, and a nice moment of world building that no one in the bar wants to hear.
And where was Curly Bill? Did you see him?
I'm about to get to that, Ben. Patience. I'm painting a picture here. There was this beautiful waterfall and a crystal clear stream that led to a verdant valley that was truly...
Consider your picture painted. What happened next?
All of this leads up to a fight in the lumberyard against Curly Bill. Depending on your luck, this fight could either be a hell on earth or a pretty fun time. Curly Bill has the ability to vanish into thin air as soon as he runs behind a lumber pile, and will use that to travel the entire distance of the arena in a single corner. If you can keep track of him and rush him down with a shotgun, good. If you come with just pistols or the rifle and lose track of him, it's a very different story. Luckily, some early shots with 2 sawed-off shotguns put him at enough of a disadvantage that I was able to pick him off and secure the kill. Well, it was pretty fun killing Curly Bill, but I don't do anything by halves, and certainly not by 2/3. So it's time to put down Johnny Ringo. It takes us a little bit longer to find him, but when we do, he's all alone. It starts out simple until— Whoa, that's cheating! Yeah, not every enemy is gonna stand still and let themselves get shot, so you have to keep your focus crosshairs trained on somebody even as they walk around. All that fancy footwork don't amount to a hill of beans, though. It ain't enough to escape what's coming for him, as we gun him down and enact one of 3 vengeances. We're going back to our roots with this next one, and that's shooting corrupt lawmen in the face. Henry Plummer was a sheriff who stole from miners and ran a gang called the Innocents. You can tell he was in charge, as his hat is taller. We track him to a gold mine that him and his men were going to plunder, and it's up to us to make our way into the mine, find Henry Plummer, and kill him. It's around this section here, where you run through a wall of gunfire and explosions, that I finally decided that my current strategy of running into my opponent linebacker style and hoping that they die in 2 shotgun blasts wasn't working. You know shotguns still hurt, right? Like, they're effective at close range, but bullets are still bullets. They don't get tired after a few feet, they still hurt. Trust me. Soon enough, though, and we're into the mine proper, and it's no easy feat to try to navigate them. The walls are narrow, corners sharp, and any conceivable trail impossible to follow. It's a good thing I abandoned the shotgun around here too, as I'd have to do a lot less spraying and a whole lot more praying. Dynamite and explosive barrels litter the entire mine, so you gotta be very careful in a place like this Oh boy. You run like hell out of the mine shaft, shoot a half a dozen people on the way down, another victory for Silas! I wonder what new upgrades I can get. Ah! Woof! I may not remember who the president is, but at least I have a detailed recollection of a path I could have taken. The way forward we actually have to go is not as climactic, but there are worse things in the world than a bit of downtime. Like a minecart. Taking this ladder up is a lot slower, but it helps you avoid an ambush waiting for you at the top if you take the elevator. Come on, boys, let's show this yeller belly what's what. Reaching the end has us square off with Henry Plummer. and if being an outlaw wasn't bad enough, he's a scallywag on top of it. This motherfucker's going into ground. Unfortunately, he seems to be a much better strategic mind, as now we're stuck in the middle of an arena with Henry hucking dynamite at us from above, with him having plenty of cover to prevent counterfire. If you haven't tried shooting dynamite out of the sky, now would be a great time to start, since he's bound to blow you to smithereens if you don't at least try. Halfway through his life bar, he'll start calling in henchmen to take a few extra shots at you. They don't really add much to the fight, and it'd probably be a lot better if you just fought him one-on-one. Doesn't matter how many people he sends, though, as he dies all the same, and we collect the bounty. Also, this section of the game takes place in 1881, and Henry Plummer had been dead for, 17 years. That means that Silas probably just made all this up and is hoping nobody knows the real story. What's Dwight gonna do, fact-check me with the latest encyclopedia? Well, we managed to kill an old man, 2 drunks, and a man who owns a hat. So why not go after the deadliest man in the Wild West? John Wesley Hardin is the fastest gunslinger who ever lived, and he just so happens to be the current man standing too close to Roscoe Bob Bryant. We saddle up to try to get him, and that's when we find ourselves in the middle of a gunfight. No intro, no nothing. People are shooting at you, make them stop. It starts you off with a quick shooter, which is a variant of the revolver that's far less powerful but reloads quicker, so ditching that as soon as possible is imperative to survival. Using my keen powers of observation, I deduced that walking through the front door would get me killed. And once I hop in from the roof, I'm proven right! Everybody inside's already dead! I told them that would happen. Well, it turns out that we jumped the gun on the whole story and have to start way back out of town to paint a proper picture. From there, yeah, you run through a small stretch of land back to the front of the town, and if you've been paying attention, this should look familiar. 515 miles really doesn't make a difference. Once you make it back to the front gates, you're right back where you started. Just kill the guys outside, climb up to the roof, and... Oh, so now you remember the people inside were alive, Silas! After they're all dispatched is John Wesley Hardin. Killed a man for snoring? Well, that's not that impressive. Ow! Fuck! Yeah, John Wesley has no reason to move. He's just standing there, arms crossed, and not even reaching for his guns. And it's not until he's ready to fire that he does. When he does pull his guns, it's impossible to get a clean shot on him, and he's already ready to fire. Except did you know that I'm faster than the speed of light? From this point forward, you can lean left and right during duels in case you need to dodge. While we can't shoot John Wesley, we sure can count a lot better than him, and he runs out of bullets and we're able to capture him. Of all the chapters in the game, this one is easily the most cuttable. Half the level is the beginning of the level, and then the other half of the level is also the beginning of the level. Just as we're about to talk about Roscoe Bob Bryant, Ben the barkeep asks us if we ever faced off with natives, which reminds Silas about his run-ins with Grey Wolf, a renegade Apache who led a party of other natives out for vengeance for his daughter's murder. A bit more noble than the rest of these egg-sucking dogs we killed, but a bounty's a bounty. I gunned down multiple birds on the way there, as I don't believe in karma, but for some reason, not soon after I do that, bad things start happening to me. Weird. Next time I simply attempt to shoot a bird, and then it turns out a lot better for me. A lot of Grey Wolf's group includes these runners that will run across the entire battlefield to get to you, but I own a gun. After some treacherous movement over a massive canyon, we finally find Grey Wolf. He tells us we carry darkness with us, and that it'll consume us if we don't let it go. He illustrates this by letting us shoot dozens more of his men. Man, I don't know what he's trying to teach me, but I'll tell you what I learned. My aim rocks! This is the closest the game gets to grinding, because you're absolutely gonna get a level up out of this given how high your combo gets. Just when I think I got him, he leads me into the most devilish trap he can devise. A bowl! The opening comedy act of running attackers relaxes me so much that I'm surprised when people remember guns exist. While the runners might have been nothing more than target practice, this is what you were practicing for. Apache warriors are gonna pop out from all over the place in every corner of the map, so you have to keep your head on a swivel to try to see where they're coming from. I really like this stage. It uses the theming of native magic to tell a different story from the rest of the game. Plus, it has a bit more variety when it comes to its bad guy. Grey Wolf isn't a bad dude, he's just on the wrong side of the law. Not to mention, this is one of the most important chapters in the game for the foreshadowing it does. A lot of Silas's adventure going forward is informed by this chapter. It seems like we're about to catch Grey Wolf, so we can make him explain what he meant by all that stuff he said, but at the last second, he gives us the slip, and we lose him. No bounty, but plenty to think about. Well, luckily with our next target, we got more than one chance to get them, since they're the Dalton brothers, a set of 3 brothers who turned from lawmen to outlaws, and we catch them now attempting to rob 2 banks at the same time. You'd never guess what town this takes place in. Maybe the towns are brothers too. Ben butts in and tries to tell us how he thinks things went down, and his version is the least interesting. Yeah, a guy walked in and shot them all in the face, what do you want? Dwight proposes that instead, a US Ranger was stationed on the rooftop beside the bank, and picked off all the grunts before charging in and shooting all the Daltons in the face. You know they survived this! The number of Dalton brothers shot in the face today have been greatly exaggerated. Silas finally pipes up over the both of them and decides to tell them what actually happened. This is one of my favorite examples of the game playing with the formatting, letting you play through everybody's recounting of the events, but the real level starts with Silas's version. You don't even realize the game managed to pad out a level by making you play it 3 times. The Daltons managed to escape the bank vault and hightail it past a wholly different gunfight that had nothing to do with the bank robbery. It turns out the entire state of Kansas has just been looking for a reason. 2 Dalton brothers manage to get away as we start a boss fight with Emmett Dalton. And he might be the funniest boss in the entire game. He has a shotgun. You have organs. Begin. Like the Clanton fight, you've got to duck behind cover and wait for him to waste enough bullets that you can riddle him with your own until he finally goes down. Even after sustained fire to the face, Emmett survives, as his 2 brothers are now the only ones unaccounted for. For that, we'd have to wait a few months and track them down to a marshy ghost town. A flood washed away any life from the town, and in its place is a lot of wet stuff that's practically cement. You move really slowly through this level, and in a firefight, it can definitely bring you closer to death. But on the plus side, the level itself is really pretty. A ghost town that's been flooded is a setting I've never seen before, and it mixes great with the autumn trees that surround the place. It really brings into focus how pretty this game is, with a very cartoonish but also very timeless art style, where instead of realism, it goes for a sense of old Western artwork that complements the theming of the story. The closer you get to death being shown by holes getting poked in Silas's story, I thought was a great touch.
Steve?
And Grey Wolf reappeared out of nowhere with 50 Gatling guns, and I had to use my time god powers to fight them off. Now start paying attention, or I'm gonna start telling stories about times I'm not killing people. The Daltons have managed to scrounge up quite the large number of distant relatives to put in our way, but they proved to be little trouble, save for the scant example of people being smart enough to bring guns that actually hurt. Yeah, did you know that holding a shotgun means you get 1 free shot to the face before you start taking damage? The real set piece for this level comes as we find a steamboat, which acts as a perfect base of operation for the Daltons. But they made the classic foible. Boats run better in the water, guys. We sneak our way on board, and a member of the local militia is there to let us in. Say, thanks, buddy. I mean, it's weird that none of you helped me before this and managed to get up here without getting shot, and you got those Dalton brother masks you're The Daltons have decided to set the whole thing on fire to try to kill me, but again, guys, we're in the water, think this through! Silas tries to make his escape as grand and amazing as possible, but everybody else in the bar gets a little bored and starts talking about the Titanic. Yeah, well, let's challenge it to a sinking to the bottom of the ocean contest if you're so goddamn impressed. I managed to wrangle their attention back by manning a Gatling gun of my own. This thing is mean, deadly, and most important, magic. overheating just means the bullets are gonna be hotter. After turning men into mincemeat, the remaining Daltons make their presence known, and we have a duel against both Daltons at the same time. Now, which brother is a bigger threat? Is it the one going for his gun, or the one confident enough to leave it alone? You get your answer. It's the small one. Vanquish him! The Daltons are no more. Just like Silas is no more close to finding the remaining two men he was after. But why was he so dead set on finding the two men he was after? Well, that takes us all the way back to 1868 in Juarez. Hey, I've heard this one before! Silas and his two brothers were cattle rustlers in Mexico, and one night while gambling, Silas cleaned out a group of cowboys of their money, including an ancient gold coin. The cowboys tracked them down and planned on killing the three brothers and taking their money back. Instead of just shooting them, though, they tried hanging the three of them from trees. The three men were Roscoe Bob Bryant, Johnny Ringo, and Jim. Just Jim. Bob leaves the gold coin in Silas's mouth as the three of them spook the horses that Silas and his brothers were sitting on and leave them to hang. In a twist of fate, the tree branch snapped under the weight of the three of them, but only Silas survived. That's when he swore vengeance, and that's why we're hunting the Wild Bunch, the last outlaw gang of the Old West, run by Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They were especially dangerous given their penchant for robbing trains, but if Roscoe Bob Bryant's running with them, that means we're just gonna have to hit harder than a train. This level sees us scampering through the remains of a train they had recently blown up, and trying to make it across without becoming a part of the wreckage ourselves. Once we get to the parts of the train that still resemble a train, we now get car after car of thugs. The setting for this stage is even more stunning than the last. Any shooter without a train level is worse off for it, and this entire chapter is dedicated to train levels. Luckily, just as all seems lost, hide your magic cards, everybody, it's the Pinkertons! Actually, they were too busy to show up, so it's really just me. Like I need the help. Like I need the help! Luckily, a well-placed Gatling gun is exactly what I need to even the odds till the first of the Wild Bunch makes their presence known. George Flatnose Curry. He was the fastest gun in the gang. Well, except the Sundance Kid. But he's like the Halo 3 of the Wild Bunch, it's undisputed. You know what, Kid Curry was probably faster than him too, so he's probably Halo Reach. Come to think of it, LZ Lay could have been faster too, so he's like, I don't know, he's combat evolved. Who were we talking about? Well, we didn't manage to kill anybody of note, and 5 years pass without much of note, until the Wild Bunch starts riding together again, which gives us another chance to find Roscoe Bob Bryant! It turns out their plan this time is to blow out the supports of a major train and rob the carcass of whatever it's worth. A rock told me that. It's now our job to get rid of the dynamite before they can set it off and kill everybody around it. The enemies here are taking things more seriously, as they've mixed body armor with the innate protective aura that shotguns provide. With enough grit and determination, though, you can remove all the dynamite charges, save the day, and finally catch Roscoe Shit. I wasn't worried. Now that the bridge's integrity has been secured, all that's left to do is pick off the remains of the Wild Bunch, including Kid Curry. And suddenly, the Gatling's on the other gun! Similar to the last Gatling gun fight, though, it's really easy to just ignore that he's even trying and rain explosive death on him from above. That leads into our final battle with Kid Curry, and if I can't shoot a guy with only one eye, I should just give up. I even take some time to menace the tree behind him. So, Bob Bryant escaped into South America, well past Mexico and into Bolivia with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. There's no way we can find him now, but luckily there's still Jim, and he's riding with the James Younger gang, helmed by Jesse James himself. And after our last adventure took us to a destroyed train, then train tracks, the natural third step is to be on a moving one. And sure, the story may have ancient native curses and Old West bullet time, but I won't have it said this game doesn't focus on realism. Silas finally has to use the bathroom. This moment right here is in the running for the best moment in the entire game. While Silas isn't here, the story can't move forward, so you're running through the same train car over and over and over as the side characters talk about how Silas has gotta be full of crap. Every time you kick down the next door and see an identical train car, it just gets funnier and funnier until he's done pissing and the game can finally continue. Though if I knew a Gatling gun was waiting for me on the other side, I would have just stayed in the bathroom. Beyond that is Jesse James himself, the best, or worst, outlaw who ever lived, as we have to duel him on opposite train cars. The setting for this duel is already stunning, but so is the fact that Jesse won't move during it. But the movement of your reticle is now based on how bumpy the train is. Now, the movie ain't called The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Silas Greaves, so obviously we don't do him in just yet. We wound him, sure, but he wasn't even the one we were looking for. No, Jim is actually riding with Frank James, the Luigi of the James Younger gang. Luckily for the developers, they chose to hide out in the same mountains Grey Wolf did. You know what that means! Guys, just throw the tomahawks, please! All I have to do is back up! You can't even beat me in melee range, just buy a gun! Ah! See, that guy gets it! And as you make your way forward, you may recognize that this is the same place from the Grey Wolf mission. We walked the exact path he told us not to, following the call of revenge over a pile of dead bodies. And it's left Silas with no friends, no family, nothing except a restless need to kill hundreds of people just to get back at 3. This whole section is meant to be a meditation on the meaning of revenge. We've undoubtedly killed more people than the 3 who did us wrong, a lot of whom didn't deserve it, a lot of whom who could have been fathers or brothers to other Silases. But does that mean our brothers' deaths should go unavenged? Would they even want vengeance seeing what it did to their brother? The only thing that knocks us out of our meditation is Ben asking if we had ever found Jim Reed. Funny he should mention that, since the key to trying to find him was currently trying to evict our head from our shoulders. Frank James has a sniping position high up on a cliff in the forest, but his splash screen doesn't have any feats. You know feet having, bitch. Run from cover to cover up the mountain, taking care not to absorb too many bullets. I'm not gonna act like getting shot doesn't build character, but there is such a thing as too much character. Eventually, though, we catch up with Frank held up in a cabin on a cliffside, and a few sticks of dynamite is all it takes to send the shack falling off the side, with Frank James still inside. He walks it off like a champ. He points us in the right direction, very kindly after I exploded him off a cliff, and we run to meet up with Jim Reed. He tries to trap us in the same way that Grey Wolf did, but after a little while and a lot of bodies, Jim comes to have a showdown man to man. It shortly becomes man one man. By this point, though, we're at the present day. Silas is an old man, and Roscoe Bob Bryant's yet to be found. Silas's fortunes begin to change a mere 6 months ago, though, as the remaining members of the Wild Bunch, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, return to the States and resume their outlaw ways. If Bob Bryant's gonna be anywhere, it's with those two, so Silas goes to hunt them down as his final bounty. This is the final mission of the game, and as the story reaches its end, it becomes apparent that maybe Silas has lost it after so long, since a majority of the enemies in this level are ghosts. At the beginning of the level, you have to defend yourself against an army of bandits come to kill you. It stays that way as you make your way into a ghost town, but after a stick of dynamite collapses a building on top of you, suddenly Silas sees himself surrounded by Billy the Kid, Henry Plummer, Pat Garrett. Everybody we had met before is back, and oh, it's almost losing its effect because, surprisingly, translucent white ghosts are very hard to see coming at you from the mist. And if you don't use concentration to, that's right, concentrate, you'll never know which angle they're coming from. I get it. I like it. But as soon as the shotgunners start walking in from out of nowhere, you start getting deaths that don't exactly feel fair. There's still a fun section after that where you're surrounded on all sides in the world's most efficiently designed graveyard, and after that is a repeat of the Emmett Dalton fight, as the Sundance Kid comes to menace you with a shotgun. Why does he have to be one of the real ones? Taking him down softens him up just enough as suddenly Butch Cassidy arrives as well. And with the bad blood boiling over between the comrades and Silas caught in the middle, there's no choice but for a three-way duel. As a Westerns fan, seeing how this all unfolded was making me feel very excited. The good, the bad, and the ugly references are... well, it's not really references if you're just doing it. But the circular three-way showdown in the graveyard is just perfect. And how they handle it with gameplay is even better. You have to shoot both Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, since they've had a whole conversation with their eyes that have told them that they need to shoot the weird interloper before going mano a mano, and that means you have to keep focus on both of them. Q and E will tab you between each of the different shooters, and you need to focus on whoever's looking at you at the time. If they're looking away, you'll lose focus. The tension of thumbing back and forth, waiting for somebody to reach for their gun so you have a chance, is so pulse-pounding, and the second someone finally makes a move, it takes 2 clean shots to finish out the last of the wild bunch. And still, no Bob. The side characters finally get sick of Silas Greaves and his stories and demand he leaves the bar, but he insists on paying before he goes. He slides the same gold coin he got from Bob all those years ago towards Ben the barkeep, and reveals to everybody that he was really Roscoe Bob Bryant, using a fake name and starting a new life. Bob immediately starts begging for his life and promises that he changed his ways. But after years and years of hunting, Silas isn't ready to listen. The final choice is yours: revenge or forgiveness. It's always a tempting choice. It could literally just come down to a coin flip on what you pick. I've played this game so many times, but every single time, I can't bring myself to pick revenge. God, I want to so badly, but I can't do it. I pick redemption every single time. Bob asks him, why didn't he just walk in and shoot him if he knew about the lie? Silas tells him that it was a test to see what Bob had done with his life, and what he would have done when he found out that Silas was looking for him. Seeing as he really did change his ways, Silas spares him, and leaves some parting words for a young Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, son, you need to take this advice to heart. If you ever get the chance to use the CIA to start a coup in a country called Iran, not Iran, Iran, it ain't a damn Apple product, to overthrow the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh to instill Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, which eventually leads to the Iranian hostage crisis and frays U.S.-Iranian relationships for years to come, by God, son, don't do it. The game ends with Silas leaving after sparing the life of the man he had spent his entire life hunting, the very embodiment of the Old West riding off into the sunset. Gunslinger is a game that's meant a lot to me for a very long time. For a while, it felt a bit like a secret where anybody who played it would tell people that it was an awesome, stylized, fast-paced, and fun cowboy shooter from a series that, no really, it's not related to Call of Duty, not even made by the same guys. Nowadays, I see people giving Gunslinger its dues, but even still, I wish more people knew just how good it was. Is it the longest game ever? No, but it has no reason to be. It came in, did what it wanted, and it was done. Not every game needs to be the longest game you ever played or have hours upon hours of additional content. It did what it wanted, and it was done. Besides, if you are itching for more of this game, you can always go to the literal arcade shooting mode to try to get a high score. I hear a high score is what they're really looking for on resumes these days. I love Call of Juarez Gunslinger, and if you have the chance, I can't recommend it enough.